Good evening, friends. Welcome to an evening with Sudasam. So this evening we will be studying, we will be learning how to overcome fear and doubt. So Bhante will be sharing some words of Dhamma on the topic. That was picked by actually Gabriella and Adriana, who are the first saying hello on the live chat. So good to see you both, Gabriella, Adriana, and hello to Elaine, Ron. And Gabriella is saying that her recovery she's feeling better, but it's much slower going because she can't go to the doctor due to the pandemic issues. We hope you're going to get better soon. And Elaine, yes, it's just a great opportunity for practice. Every time is a good opportunity for practice, but hopefully things will get better soon. And hello to Ryan, Jessica, Bobby, Leonardo, and of course, welcome to Bhante Sudasam. So we will be starting as usual with chanting the Ratana Sutta, and you can find the link on the live chat. And then after that, Bhante will be guiding us in meditation. And then after that, he will be sharing some words of Dhamma. And if you have any questions at any time, feel free to put them in the live chat and he will address them later. And hello to Medinda. Thank you for the beautiful gift. We'll send you a message later, but wanted to say thank you live. All right.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Yani bhutani samagatani bummani vayani vantaleke. Sabe bhuta sumana bhavantu atopi sakacha sunantu vasitam. Tasmahi bhutani sameta sabe metam karotamanusya pajaya. Devacharato chaharanti evalim tasmahi nera kata pamata. Yam kinchivitam idavahuram vasage suvayam ratanam panitam. Nano samamati tathagatena idampi buddhe ratanam panitam. Etena sachena suvati hotu. Kayam viragam amatam panitam yadajjaga sakyamuni samahito. Natena dhammena samati kinchi idampi dhamme ratanam panitam. Etena sachena suvati hotu. Yang Buddha seto parivanayi suchim samadhimanam tarikanyamahu. Samadhina tena samona vidyati dampi dhamme ratanam panitam. Etena sachena suvati hotu. Ye bhungala tasatam vasata chattari etani yugani honti. Te dakineya sugata sasavaka ete sudinnani mahapalani. Idampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu. Ye sopayutta manasa dalhena nikhamino gotamasasanam hi te patipata matam vigaiha lathamutani buddhim bunjamana idampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena sachena subhati hotu yatinna kilo patavim sito siya chatu vivate viya sampakampiyo tatu pamam sabburisam vadami yo arya sachani avecha passati Vedampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena sachena subhati hotu Ye arya sachani vibhavayanti gambhira panyena sudesitani Kinchapi te honti pusapamata na te bhavam atamam adiyanti Idampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena sachena subhati hotu Sahava sadasana sampadaya tayasu dhamma jahita bhavanti Sakaya diti vichiki chitancha silabatam vapi adati kinchi Chatuhapaye cha vipamuto chachabhitanani abhavvo katum Idampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena sachena subhati hotu Kinchapi sokam mam karoti papakam kayena vacha udaceta va Abhabbo sota sapati chadaya Abhata dita pada savutam Idampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena sachena subhati hotu Vanapagumbe yata pusitage gimmanamase patamasmin imhe Tatupamam dhammavaram adesayi nibbanagamim paramam hitaya Idampi buddhe ratanam panitam etena sachena subhati hotu Varo varam yu varado varaharo anutaro dhammavaram adesayi Idampi buddhe ratanam panitam etena sachena subhati hotu Kinam puranam navam nati sambhavam virata citta yatike bhavasmim Te kina bija viruli chandani banti dirayatayam padipo Idampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena sachena subhati hotu Yani dabhutani samagatani bummani vayani vamtalike Tathagatam devamanusapujitam buddham namassama subhati hotu Yani dabhutani samagatani bummani vayani vamtalike Tathagatam devamanusapujitam dhammam namassama subhati hotu Yani dabhutani samagatani bummani vayani vamtalike Tathagatam devamanusapujitam sangham namassama subhati hotu Etena sachavajjena dukkhavupasamintute Etena sacha vajjena vayavupasamintu te. Etena sacha vajjena rogavupasamintu te. Okay, so please get in meditation posture. So once you're settled in, evaluate your mind and ask yourself, what meditation method would be most applicable right now? What would be most helpful, most useful? If your mind is scattered, you might focus on samadhi. If your mindfulness is weak, you might focus on your body. If you've been aversive or grumpy of late, you might do some metta. If your mind is restless and wants to be active, you might use the 6 elements. If you want to have a far out experience, you might do the recognition of impermanence. Or whatever other method you are aware of, whatever other methods you've had success with. Just take a moment to evaluate your state of mind and select a method that you feel is applicable to your current condition. And once you've made your decision, resolve upon that method and stay with it for the entire period of meditation. So please go ahead and start, and I'll ring the bell in a few minutes.
Right, thank you, Bante. And welcome to some other friends who have joined us in the meanwhile. Hello to Mark, Edward, AP, and Geeta and Lydia. So we can invite now Bante to share with us some Dhamma.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Good evening, friends. It's so nice to meditate, isn't it? Just to let the mind be peaceful for a while. It's quite a lovely thing. So the topic today is overcoming fear and doubt. And I found it interesting that these two subjects are conjoined, because I normally think of them as two separate things. But now I'm reflecting that actually doubt can produce fear. So there's some connection between the two. But still, I normally think of it as two separate things. And I'd actually like to start by focusing on the subject of doubt, because I think that's the more critical one. It's the more critical condition of mind. And once doubt is resolved, then handling fear becomes much easier. So first off, looking at doubt, the experience of doubt within a Buddhist context. So first off, we should distinguish between two different kinds of doubt. So there's the kind of doubting which is uninterested in believing in something, the kind of doubt which is rejecting the possibility of something being true, the kind of doubt which is therefore uninterested in knowing truth, but which is merely based in a skepticism about something, some teaching or some perspective or some practice. And the other kind of doubt is the doubt which is based upon a genuine, sincere wish to know. So it's like, I don't understand. I don't know if this is true or not, and I really want to find out. So the first kind of doubt is not helpful. The first kind of doubt is actually quite unwholesome, because it's that like, well, I don't care. I don't know and I don't care. I doubt it's true, and I'm not going to bother to investigate it because I doubt it's true. And this is the kind of skepticism which is classified as a hindrance. It's the kind of skepticism which prevents progress. I doubt it's true, therefore I'm not going to investigate it. An example of this in more general worldly terms, I'm going to pick a somewhat silly example, so please excuse me if this upsets you, and if it does upset you, well, then you need to look at that. For centuries, there were reports of some kind of large creature or family of creatures living in Loch Ness, so a lake in Scotland. And the general attitude from the scientific community was, we doubt it's true, so we're not going to bother to investigate it. So it was always regarded as a fringe thing, which means it was extraordinarily difficult for the very tiny number of scientists who were interested in finding out. It's very difficult for them to get funding. It's very difficult for them to get supplies and technology to properly investigate the marine life in that particular lake. So that's an example of doubt preventing investigation. We doubt it's true, therefore we're not even going to bother to look into it. So I'm not going to raise the question of whether or not there were or are large marine animals living in Loch Ness, because that's completely outside the subject of the talk tonight. It's totally beside the point. What is to the point is that the pervasive doubt about the potential existence of large marine creatures in that particular lake then led to a lack of investigation. We doubt it's true, so we're not even going to bother to check. This is the kind of doubt which will utterly sabotage your spiritual practice. I doubt karma is true, so I'm not even going to look at it. I'm not even going to consider the possibility that it might be true. I doubt rebirth is true, so I'm not even going to think about it. YOLO, let's go to the bar. I doubt jhana is attainable, so I'm not going to try. I'm just going to focus on practicing vipassana instead. Or the flip side, I doubt I'm going to attain enlightenment in this lifetime, so I'll only practice samadhi because it's more comfortable. I doubt the Pali Canon is an accurate representation of the Buddha's teachings, so I'm not even going to read it or study it. I doubt the Noble Eightfold Path is the most important thing in Buddhism, so I'm not going to practice most of it. So this is the kind of doubt which will utterly demolish your ability to make any progress whatsoever on the path. The other kind of doubt, and this is more the way the word doubt is used in the Chan traditions. So the other kind of doubt is what's sometimes called the great doubt. And this is more refers to the investigating mind, the questioning mind which seeks the truth. The mind which says, I don't know if the Buddha's teachings are true or not, so I'm going to investigate them very carefully and experiment with them very carefully and see what happens, pay close attention, reflect on it, and hopefully come to a better understanding of the truth. That's the kind of doubt which can lead to benefit. So that's, again, what we might call investigative doubt, as opposed to skeptical doubt. So skeptical doubt is a hindrance. Investigative doubt, on the other hand, can be a powerful support to one's practice. Can be. We still need to be careful with it because it can very easily veer in the unhelpful direction of inactivity or apathy towards inactive agnosticism, which is not helpful. So we still need to be careful to make sure that investigative doubt is sincerely investigative, that it is accompanied by a genuine, sincere wish to know, a genuine, sincere wish to find out, a genuine, sincere wish to come to a deep understanding of the truth. Then it's okay. Then it can support us. Either kind of doubt is resolved through faith. And there's a few different kinds of faith. There's a few different ways that we can talk about faith. So the simplest form of faith is faith through belief. And this is the simplest form of faith, but it can also be the most fragile. It can also be extremely powerful. But it's one that needs to be handled carefully. So faith through belief is you just believe something for whatever reason. Maybe you like it, or maybe it's what your parents taught you. Or maybe it just makes sense to you. Whatever it is, you believe it. And we'll actually talk more about this when we go over the Chunky Sutta in, is that tomorrow? Okay. It's either tomorrow or in a couple weeks. I don't remember. When we go over the Chunky Sutta, we'll talk about this in a bit more detail. Do you know? Oh, okay. Anyway, Chunky Sutta, Imen 95, Majjhima Nikaya number 95, goes into this in a bit more detail. Different reasons which one might believe something. And of course, the well-known Kalama Sutta gives a bit more detail on the subject as well. So faith based on belief. So this is one way to actually prevents the arising of doubt in the first place. So in the context of Buddhism, this is what you tend to see from people who are born into Buddhist families or Buddhist cultures, born with Buddhist parents, is they tend to have a deep belief that the Buddha was enlightened, that the Dharma leads to enlightenment, that the Sangha is worthy of respect and veneration. They tend to have a deep belief that the suttas are accurate, at least mostly accurate, and worthy of study. Tend to have a deep belief that the Noble Eightfold Path is worth following, even if we don't like it and don't want to follow it. There's at least a belief that it's something that's worth doing. So this kind of belief tends to prevent the arising of doubt in the first place. For those of us who are convert Buddhists, we don't have that, at least not to start with. So we do have to deal with the fact that doubt in the accuracy of the Buddha's teachings, doubt in the efficacy of the Buddha's practices is likely to be something that we need to work with. So in my case, I started from the perspective of agnosticism. When I first came across Buddhism, I was deep in my agnosticism phase. But it was not the uncaring, apathetic agnosticism that many people fall into, but rather it was an investigative agnosticism. So investigative doubt. I did not know truth. I did not know reality. I did not know how to train the mind, or if it was even possible. But I wanted to know. So I investigated, I searched, I examined, I considered, and I practiced. And that eventually led me to come across the Buddhist teachings. And again, in the beginning, I did not automatically believe them, though I did find something deeply appealing about them, but I did not immediately believe them. But I did have that investigative instinct to examine them and to try them out and to reflect deeply on them and to see how they would affect my mind if committed to thoroughly. And it was through that process of examination, reflection, consideration, experimentation, and practice that I started to gain some confidence in them. I started to gain some faith in them. So here we see two other kinds of faith. So one is the faith of direct experience. So for example, you sit down, you focus your attention on your body for 20 or 30 minutes, and afterwards you notice that your mind is much sharper, clearer, and calmer. So then you have faith that mindfulness of the body produces tranquility and clarity. That's faith through direct experience. So that dispels doubt to some extent. The second is faith based on logical inference. This one we have to be a little more careful with because you can get yourself into misconclusions. One of the easiest ways is through the principle of garbage in, garbage out. If you're starting with bad information, then no matter how good your logical process is, you will wind up with inaccurate results, misleading results, false results. But if we are basing our logical process on what we have faith in through direct experience, then we're more likely to get useful results. We're more likely to get accurate results, which we can believe in. So for example, karma. Karma ultimately is causality. It's cause and effect. So through direct experience and reflecting on our direct experience, we can see that causality, cause and effect, has been a principle which has been in operation for as long as we can remember. And that we live in a world which is defined by causality. So then logical inference is to then say, well, then causality applies to everything without exception. We can't guarantee that, of course, but it's a reasonable belief based upon personal experience and logical inference. We can come to the reasonable belief that causality applies to everything, every domain, at all times, whether physical or mental. Because we can see in our own experience the operating of causality, the operating of karma. So we can extrapolate it, operating on larger scales outside of our immediate perception. So again, in this way, doubt erodes, doubt fades away. Then we come to the so this is dealing with doubt on a larger scale. So doubt in the Buddhist path, doubt in the Buddhist teachings, how to overcome that and start to build up a deep faith, a deep confidence in the Buddhist teachings. And it's necessary that we be open to the possibility that the Dhamma is true. If we're not open to that possibility, then we will hit a wall very quickly. We might still stumble along doing a bit of meditation here and there and going on retreats every now and then and listening to some secular meditation teachers talk about secular meditation and so on. And that's okay, I suppose. It's better than nothing. But as long as we are not open to the possibility that the Dhamma is literally true, then we will never overcome our doubt. We will never investigate the Dhamma with sincerity, which means we will never know whether or not it's true. So we must be open to the possibility that the Dhamma is true if we wish to know. Again, it's like a scientist performing an experiment. A scientist performs an experiment because they think there's a possibility that their hypothesis is true. If a scientist really genuinely believes that the hypothesis is completely, utterly false, they'll never do the experiment in the first place, unless their point is to try to prove that the hypothesis is false to other people. But generally speaking, they're not going to waste their time doing something which they already know for absolute certain is not going to work. So we must be open to the possibility that the Dhamma is true in order to give a sincere go at it. The possibility that the Buddha knew what he was talking about and that his teachings are recorded more or less faithfully in the suttas. Then we can work on overcoming our doubt through investigation. And it's actually interesting. One of the consequences of this investigative mindset, this open-minded investigation, is that the paralyzing discomfort of doubt evaporates, disappears. And it's replaced instead by a joyous exploration, this joyful sense of discovery, of like, let's find this out. Yes, let's explore. Let's see it for ourselves. Yes. We're learning something valuable. Worth exploring, it's worth investigating. So this changes the character of the questioning into something joyful, something wonderful, something happy, something delightful. And the other topic that was raised is the issue of fear. So the question is, fear of what? What is it we're afraid of? Fear of encountering difficulties that we can't handle, maybe? Well, this is something which, as we cultivate our practice, that kind of fear will slowly evaporate as well. As we cultivate our practice, we start to develop a deep wellspring of serenity, a deep wellspring of equanimity. We start to cultivate a spaciousness and tolerance of mind, which is able to peacefully endure any circumstance, any experience. So, as we feel that ever deepening serenity and equanimity and spaciousness of mind developing through our practice, then we know that there's nothing to fear in samsara, because whatever we face, we can handle it, we can deal with it. It might be challenging, but it's not impossible. We might screw up, but we might succeed. And if we screw up, we might learn from that and succeed the next time. So fear starts to be replaced with self-confidence. One of the characteristics of a Buddha is Vaisaraja, self-confidence, freedom from fear, freedom from trepidation. And another element of fear is fear of the unknown, fear of uncertainty, fear of unpredictability. And this also tends to evaporate, particularly with faith in karma. As our faith in karma becomes deeper and stronger, then we recognize that there is nothing unpredictable in life. There is nothing random or chaotic. Rather, our experiences are determined by the choices that we make. So, as long as we make good choices, then we have nothing to fear. As long as we make good choices, then we will inevitably get good results. There's nothing to fear. We might still have some lingering bad karma from the past. We almost certainly do. And that will inevitably express its result at some point. But once it's over, it's over. As long as we cultivate only good karma and don't cultivate any more bad karma, then as time goes by, when we experience unpleasant things, we can reflect. This unpleasant experience is just a bit more of my bad karma fading away. It's one more bag of bad karma that's been dumped out. One less dose of bad karma that I need to worry about in the future. And every time we do good things, then we can reflect. Oh, wonderful. I'm stockpiling pleasantness and peacefulness for the future. I'm stockpiling good fortune for the future, which will dilute and outweigh the residual bad karma from the past. So again, fear fades away and is replaced by joy. The joy of knowing that our fate is in our own hands and that we're building a good fate for ourselves. Moment after moment, we're building a positive fate for ourselves, a positive future, and a positive present for that matter. So again, fear fades away. Other elements which can come up in our practice, again related to doubt and fear. So doubt in our own spiritual abilities. That sometimes comes up. Some people tell me that they doubt they can attain enlightenment. And fair enough. Can seem like a very distant and remote goal. Can certainly seem that way. but you've got it in you. The Buddha was very clear on this. Absolutely everyone without exception has the capacity to attain full enlightenment. It's not easy, it's not quick, but everyone can do it. Every single being shares that same basic capacity to attain enlightenment. To imagine otherwise is simply a form of self-centeredness. It's just a form of conceit. So if you think, well, other people can attain enlightenment, but not me. I am unique. I am the unique special being that is incapable of attaining enlightenment, not like those others. What is that? That is conceit. That is self-centeredness. That is not Buddhism. Everything is not self. Because everything is not self, then there is no being which is incapable of Buddhahood. Isn't that wonderful? So there's no need to doubt your own spiritual capabilities because you have exactly the same spiritual potential as every other sentient being, including every single bodhisattva, every single arhat, every single Buddha. Nothing makes you different from them. Nothing at all. There's no need to doubt your own abilities. You've got it. And also some people fear. They fear that they won't attain enlightenment in this lifetime or possibly ever. Once again, you don't need to fear that. You just need to point yourself in the right direction and keep moving forward. And also recognize that sometimes you're going to get off track. Sometimes you're going to backslide. Sometimes you're going to get confused. That's normal. The moment you recognize that you got lost, that you got distracted, that you backslid, the moment you recognize that, then it's all part of the path. The detour is still part of the path, as long as we know it for what it is. Still best avoided, of course. Best to stay on the straight and narrow, as they say. So best to avoid the detours because it's just wasting time. And it tends to be quite unpleasant. But if you recognize it for what it is, then you're back on the path. Actually, the moment you recognize you took a detour, you're already back on the path. So you don't need to fear not attaining awakening. You just need to keep working on attaining awakening, and it will come when the time comes. So these are the thoughts I have on overcoming fear and doubt. Earlier, when I was trying to convince Ayasoma to give this talk, she was telling me that I should give it because I have a lot to say on the subject. And I said, I doubt I have much to say on the subject. And I started telling her why I think I don't have much to say on the subject. And turns out I actually do have a few things to say on the subject. So at this time, if you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and enter them in the chat, and we can have a bit more discussion around the subject.
Right. Thank you, Bante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Marielle says, Bante, your quotes are on fire today. She quoted a few great quotes, actually. A detour is still part of the path as long as we know what it is. It's pretty good. And also just a little bit of bad karma I'm letting go of. Okay, Marielle, you're hired for the excerpts, quotes from the Dhamma talks. Great. So Mohammed, way at the beginning, was asking, how can you even be interested in practice in the first place with that sort of doubt?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yet, somehow people get interested in practice. Can happen through all kinds of ways. Yeah. And it's different for different people. But generally speaking, the main reason why most people get into practice, so I've asked people, pretty much every convert Buddhist I meet, I ask them how they got into the practice. And 9 times out of 10, the answer has something to do with dukkha. Something to do with having a deep recognition of the unsatisfactoriness of life coupled by a sense that there must be a solution. And that leads to people seeking a solution. And Buddhism offers a solution. Yep.
Which also works, which is kind of great. And Gabriela is asking, what is the role of curiosity in the practice of Dharma?
I'd say curiosity is similar to the investigative mentality I spoke about earlier. So curiosity is wanting to know, which is a very important quality. If you don't want to know, then you won't try to find out. You won't try to know. So curiosity is very important. Be curious. What was it the Buddha realized? What is it that all enlightened beings know? What's the experience of an awakened mind? Be curious about these things. And also recognize that intellectual thought will only go so far. And if we really want to satisfy our curiosity, then we need to develop the path. Okay?
And Gabriela also asks, what is the distinction between healthy samvega, hiriyottapa, versus the unhealthy anxiety, pointlessly doubtful, restless, unsettled mind?
So samvega and hiriyottapa are two different things. I'm going to have to answer those two separately. So samvega is one of those Pali words that's very difficult to accurately translate into English, especially in a single word or even a phrase. You kind of need a paragraph to translate the word samvega. Samvega is sometimes translated as a sense of spiritual urgency, which is decent. Another translation is a sane and sober sadness. I guess someone doesn't like this one at all. I'm not a big fan of it either, but it does bring out a certain flavor of it. So samvega is very closely related to nibbida. So nibbida is disenchantment. It's when we start to lose our taste for the things of the world because we see that there's no true happiness to be found in them. That's nibbida. Samvega is similar. Samvega is when we see, to one degree or another, we see the patheticness of samsara. We see the hopelessness of samsara. We see the pointlessness of samsara. And we want to be free of it. So samvega is closely related to nibbida. And that both of them are built upon this recognition of the lack of solace to be found in worldly things. They're both based upon this recognition of the pathetic pointlessness of samsara. But this is not aversion. It's not hating samsara. It's just losing our interest in getting wrapped up in samsara. It's losing our interest in, losing our obsession with samsara. It's maybe a better way to say it. It's losing our obsession with samsara. And inclining the mind towards awakening instead. Hiriyottapa, I usually just translate hiriyottapa as conscience. I think that's the most direct English translation. There's a few common translations which I really don't like at all. Hiriyottapa is often translated as moral shame and moral dread, which I think are dreadful and shameful translations, which totally miss the meaning of the words. I'm not a fan at all of those translations. I think conscience is perfectly fine. Hiriyottapa is the knowing of right and wrong, and the tendency to do what's right and avoid what's wrong. It's hiriyottapa, very simply. So conscience. What was the other? Can you read the question again? I want to make sure I caught
the distinction between healthy samvega, hiriyottapa, versus unhealthy anxiety, pointlessly doubtful, restless, unsettled mind.
Yeah, so anxiety about what exactly? If it's anxiety about unpleasant things happening to you, well, then just always cultivate good karma. And eventually the bad things will stop happening. Once you wear out your bad karma bank, then the bad things stop happening. So just only do good things, and you have nothing to be anxious about. As for like the restless, what is it? Restlessness and what was so anxiety? What and restlessness?
Unsettled mind.
Oh, unsettled mind. Practice samadhi. Also reflect that you know the path to awakening. You just need to follow it. So you can stop thinking and just do the practice. You've already done the thinking part. Now you need to do the developing part. So samadhi, samadhi, samadhi. Sati, samadhi, sati, samadhi. All the time. Sati, samadhi. Move slowly, move peacefully. Keep your mind silent. Avoid things that agitate and stir up the mind. Don't listen to music. Don't watch TV. Don't play video games. Avoid things that stir up and agitate the mind. Avoid stimulants. Or stay within your tolerance. If you know you can handle a little bit of tea or a little bit of coffee, that's fine, but stay within your tolerance. And keep your body and mind serene, tranquil, and peaceful at all times. Okay?
Great. And Gabriella also says this interesting thing. Let's see. Oh goodness, I have been that person who doubted my own enlightenment when I thought the Abhidhamma Patisandi Citta made me scared that I was Ahetuka or Dihetuka Patisandi Citta.
Gabriella, with all due respect, stop reading Abhidhamma. Yeah.
Oh, it continued. And so I was worried that this would make it impossible for me to ever attain awakening, and it made me desire jhana to confirm for me that I had a tihetuka patisandi citta, and I pushed jhana away. Essentially, when I gave up the notion that I never experienced jhana.
Okay. So once again, every single sentient being without exception can attain awakening, including you. So don't worry about some random weird things that you found in some Abhidhamma commentaries. It's totally beside the point.
She said, I will stop reading Abhidhamma.
Good.
It made kind of like my day. I thought I have to say that comment.
Anything else?
Yes, there's actually quite a few things. But
okay. Then I'll give shorter answers.
And Danilo says, on some days I cannot focus at all during my meditation, and it feels like I just wasted time. So should I not count those meditations, or are they still important?
They're still important. As long as you're making even a little bit of effort, then you are building up your reservoir of meditation karma. And that's what leads to you having good meditation in the future. So some people think that jhana just appears out of nowhere one day, but that's not the case. Good samadhi happens because you had 99 meditation periods with bad samadhi. And then one day you hit sufficient samadhi karma in your karma bank, and you sit down and you're like, oh, that was easy. Why was it easy this time? Because you've already built up your samadhi karma through the previous 99 times when it was not easy. So you're never wasting your time. As long as you're putting forth even a little bit of effort, you're not wasting time. It might feel like you're not getting good results, but you're still building up your samadhi karma, your insight karma, which eventually will produce more tangible effects. Okay.
And Oldie Aster, cool nickname, says, what are the types of doubt that make up the fetter of doubt?
skeptical doubt, as I mentioned earlier. The kind of vacillating mind, which is like, I don't know if this is really true. I don't know if this is really worth doing. I don't think I'll even bother. That's the kind of doubt which is not so good. So again, put down the doubt and just try it out. Okay.
And Gita says, Samvega, wow, Bhante, that's exactly how we felt when our dad passed away. This brought us to the study of the Dhamma.
Great. Good.
And Leonardo says, I come back to the bodhicitta mind. I think developing a bodhicitta mind brings happiness and takes doubt and fear away. If we find refuge in the three jewels until we find liberation for the sake of all beings, we're happy because we want all the happiness of all beings and also are on the way to liberation. As long as there are beings, we can be here helping as best as we can.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we find enlightenment in humans, it will be fine because we're happy and contributing to others' happiness in the process. No doubt or fear there.
Yeah. Yeah. So for many people, that bodhisattva attitude of at least I'm helping others along the way. May all beings attain awakening through my efforts. That kind of attitude can really help to lighten the burden of samsara. It changes our attitude so that we no longer see samsara as this horrible, miserable place that we have to slog through, but rather we see it as a joyful training ground for developing a Buddha mind. So yeah, it's really useful to shift our perspective. Traditional Theravada often has this kind of doom and gloom perspective of like, samsara is so awful, it's terrible, we should get free right away because it's awful and we hate this place. But that kind of attitude is not necessarily conducive to enlightenment. Again, as I mentioned earlier, Samvega is not hatred of samsara. It's a recognition of the pointlessness of samsara. Nibbida is not hatred of samsara. It's the disappearance of obsession with the petty things of the world. So that's a very serene, peaceful mind. So Samvega is a serene, peaceful mind. Nibbida is a serene, peaceful mind. It's not that like, I will crawl through broken glass to reach enlightenment. That's not Samvega, that's just idiocy. Samvega is recognizing, yes, samsara is really not worth getting tied up in. So I'm not gonna tie myself up in it anymore. Oh, isn't that so lovely to not be tied up in samsara? It's great, cool. And the joy of knowing that we're on the path towards complete untying. Okay.
Great. I love Marielle is on the job, so she's going. Samsara equals joyful training ground. Another quote. And Oleaster also asks, and to add to my question, how does one know when they are free from doubt? Is it an aha moment or more of a gentler realization?
Well, we can talk about degrees of freedom from doubt. Of course, ultimate freedom from doubt is upon attainment of complete enlightenment. And that you know when it happens, you'll know. There'll be no doubt in your mind. So you'll know. One step below that is the freedom from doubt that arises in a stream enterer. So this is when one has no doubt whatsoever that one is irreversibly bound for enlightenment, that one is on the path towards enlightenment and that nothing can pull you away from it. And again, that's something that you know for yourself. So a stream enterer doesn't need somebody else to tell them that they're a stream enterer. A stream enterer knows with absolute certainty that they are on the path to enlightenment and that nothing can bump them off the path. So, and then one step below that is more ordinary freedom from doubt, which is when the mind is serene in direct knowing of this moment. So when the mind is serene in confidence in the Dhamma. So when the mind is serene in belief in the efficacy of the Dhamma. So this is the more ordinary kind of freedom from doubt that comes through reading and contemplating the Dhamma, through applying the Noble Eightfold Path to our lives, through reflecting on the benefits of our practice, and so on. So that brings this more ordinary kind of freedom from doubt. Okay.
And Bobby is asking, how can we deal with doubts and fear about making major life-changing decisions with being fearful that we might be making a mistake, doubtful that we're making the right decision?
So the first thing to ask yourself is, of the choices in front of me, is there one which is clearly more wholesome than the others? Is there one which is clearly more Buddhist than the others, clearly more supportive of the path to enlightenment than the others? These are all just different versions of the same question. If the answer is yes, you do that. If the answer is no, if you're faced with multiple options, all of which seem to have more or less equal moral potency, more or less equal relevance to awakening, then flip a coin because it doesn't matter the slightest bit. You don't need to worry about these things because it really doesn't matter at all. Okay?
And Gabriela says, I think that the pure abodes is the joyful training grounds. Samsara is rougher around the edges as a training ground. It's more like, oh, painful training ground.
Yeah, so the training ground is paved with broken glass. Fortunately, the Dhamma gives us some very thick boots. So we'll be okay as long as we don't fall down too much.
Also, we need to practice perceiving the repulsive as unrepulsive.
Yeah. Unless you're a greed type.
Yes, then it's the unrepulsive as repulsive.
Yeah.
All right, and that was the last question. Oh, Gabriela says, do our best, everyone. Let's not step on the metaphorical glass.
Yes, absolutely.
Because, ouch. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, so I think that's all for this evening. Thank you so much, Bhante, for sharing words of Dhamma. And we will be meeting again with Bhante Sudhaso tomorrow for Sutta study, and actually tomorrow evening as well on a talk on cosmology. This week is like a special Bhante Sudhaso. Well, I'm not the best one to talk about cosmology, Bhante. So
don't worry, we have an Ayasoma week coming up soon.
So see you all tomorrow morning and evening, and even the day after tomorrow morning and evening. On Friday evening we will have monk chat, so you can bring all your questions, Dharma related or closely to Dharma related then, and we'll do our best to try and answer them. All right, so we can end with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And may you all have a great